Good evening, everyone. I'd like to echo all the welcomes you've heard so far and say that I'm very glad to see so many join us this weekend. I work within the legal and lobbying team at SPUC, in addition to my services work. And so to kick off our conference, I want to speak to you about a live political issue that we're campaigning on and that we could use your help for. But before I do, there's a few things that I want to touch on. I'm conscious that for many people here, this might be your first youth conference or even your first pro-life event. Because of the nature of what I'm going to be speaking about tonight, which is pills by post medical abortion, some things I say will be specific to the process of abortion and how they take place. And I'm very conscious that that can be upsetting. I'll do my best to not be too graphic in my language, and I won't use graphic imagery relating to abortion, but you still may find that it affects you. I'll be sharing clips of video testimonies from two women who have undergone medical abortions at home. I'm not sure it's been shared yet, but we do have two women here who are available to speak to anybody who feels affected by anything they hear over the course of the weekend. And please do take advantage of that resource if you feel you need it. Before I speak specifically about the pills by post policy, I think it's important to go back to basics, especially since, as I said, I know that some of you, this might be your first pro-life event. So I want to discuss the law and also the ways in which abortions are performed in this country. Speaking very broadly, broad strokes, with the way the law has been interpreted in the UK, women can have an abortion for any reason up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. That is 6 months. If the baby is diagnosed with a disability in the womb, a woman could have an abortion at any point in her pregnancy, effectively up to birth. There are, again, generally speaking, two categories of abortion procedure, the surgical and the medical. There are two types of surgical abortion performed in the UK. The first is called vacuum aspiration. This will typically be performed up to 14 weeks gestation or in the first trimester. And in this procedure, a tube and suction are used to remove the unborn child from the uterus. The second type of surgical abortion is called dilation and evacuation, although you'll hear this terminology referring to other things as well, and it doesn't always explicitly refer to elective abortion. This procedure is typically performed in the second trimester, up to 24 weeks, and in some cases beyond that. And in this procedure, the unborn child is removed in pieces. The second category of abortion is referred to as medical abortion, and that means an abortion that takes place using medications. In the UK, this involves two drugs, mifepristone and misoprostol. Mifepristone acts by inhibiting progesterone, a hormone that, among other things, is necessary for a baby to survive the first trimester. Misoprostol then causes contractions, which expel the baby from a woman's uterus. The vast majority of abortions in this country are medical. So, those are the types of abortion. But what do I mean when I say pills by post? Pills by post abortion was first introduced as a temporary emergency measure during the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. The idea being that women need to access, quote unquote, health care of abortion, but should not be attending clinics in person. As restrictions began to ease, the Department for Health and Social Care ran a consultation about making it a permanent policy moving forward. In early 2022, the same DHSC announced that the policy, which was always intended to be temporary, would be coming to an end that August. Before that deadline, in March, MPs voted on an amendment to the Health and Social Care Bill, which made pills by post permanent policy. It's important to note that campaigners for abortion have always wanted this outcome, even before the pandemic. Promoters of abortion have been pushing home terminations for years, and ultimately, they successfully exploited the pandemic to achieve their ends. Now that pills by post abortion has been common in the UK for years, we have an even stronger sense of the negative impact the policy has had. And this evening, I'm going to explore with you some of the failures of this policy. Of course, every abortion is a tragedy, but the pills by post policy has put women at greater risk and facilitated law breaking, further compounding the wrong of abortion. According to the policy, pills by post abortions should only be happening up to 10 weeks gestation. However, there are not sufficient safeguards in place to ensure that this is the case. The policy relies on women self-reporting how far along they are and the gestational age of their baby over the phone. And there's no medical confirmation necessary, like an ultrasound. This means that women may be reporting an incorrect gestational age over the phone, either because they've genuinely miscalculated, which is pretty common, or because they are intentionally misleading clinicians, because they know that they're past the 10-week limit. Medical abortions past 10 weeks come with increased risks to women's health, and including an increased risk of the need for surgical intervention. But it gets even worse, because we know that women are not only having abortions past the 10-week limit for the policy, but also past the 24-week limit for legal abortion. A medical abortion past 24 weeks would not only carry additional health risks for the mother, but would also be a particularly traumatic experience. We're talking about babies that could be viable outside the womb, so nearly full term. Women who are found to be taking abortion pills at this stage may also be charged for having an illegal abortion, which we have seen recently, and I'll explore a bit later on. And abortion campaigners admit that this is happening. According to their own statements, in just 8 months of pills by post, there were 4 women facing prosecution for illegal abortion. And they go on to admit that in the previous 160 years, only 3 women had ever been charged for carrying out their own abortion. So, in just over 50 years of legal abortion, only 3 women in that time, in 160 years of the law, but in the 50 plus years of legal abortion in this country, only 3 women had ever been charged for carrying out their own abortion. And I'll admit they are particularly horrific cases if you ever want to look those up. But in just 8 months, in the first 8 months of this policy, 4 women, more than had ever been charged before, were facing prosecution. The problem is clearly not the existing abortion law, but a recent change. That policy change in 2020, which made it possible and facilitated these illegal late-term abortions. This brings us to the tragic story of Carla and Lily Foster. I imagine, show of hands, how many people had heard about this case? Okay. Fewer hands than I thought, because it was all over the news. During lockdown, Carla was pregnant, but had moved back in with her previously estranged partner and their children. She was already well over the legal limit for abortion when she phoned BPAS in order to procure abortion drugs. She lied to them about how far along she was, and she was sent the pills in the post. She carried out her abortion at home when she was between 32 and 34 weeks pregnant, so nearly full term. She was tried for having an illegal abortion and was charged. After being sentenced to 2 years in prison, she appealed the sentence and will not serve any time. Court documents show that this was a deeply traumatic experience for Carla, who went on to name her daughter herself and name her Lily, for whom we have named this campaign. This only happened as a result of the pills by post policy and its lack of safeguards. And yet, BPAS, the main abortion provider, are using this case to campaign for decriminalization of abortion, a case that their own policy facilitated. And we'll touch on decriminalization at the end of this presentation. And that brings us to the second failing, that as a policy, pills by post abortion is impossible to regulate effectively, because the process relies entirely on women self-reporting over the phone. There's no way to guarantee that everything she says is true. She could be lying about her age, her gestational stage, who the pills are for, anything. And this has been proven to be easy to take advantage of. A mystery client exercise saw 26 women call up clinics to request abortion pills. All 26 of these women gave false identities with no NHS number. They created stories where a woman was obtaining pills on behalf of her daughter, where a woman was clearly being pressured, and other distressing situations. All 26 were sent the pills. Clearly, this policy is easy to take advantage of. And it's not just about women lying. The fact that women have to self-administer the pills also creates problems to do with regulation. You may have come across the story of Natalia, who has bravely shared her story of having a medical abortion. Natalia received the abortion pills, but wasn't sure that she wanted to take them. She was torn up about the idea of having an abortion. Because of this, she carried the pills around in her handbag for weeks after receiving them, until she was eventually talked into taking them by others. I'm now going to share a clip of Natalia, who told her story at the March for Life in 2021.
I was told through the abortion provider is questionable. I was 8 weeks pregnant after finally coming home with these pills, but I didn't take them that night. I waited for another 2 weeks. And looking back, all I was waiting for was for help. I needed help, but my voice was silenced. I was 10 and a half weeks pregnant at this point. After hours and hours of pressure and coercion from my so-called friends at the time, I finally took the first abortion pill, diluted it in a bottle lid, as I couldn't swallow it. From there, I thought there was no going back. I was unaware that if I had stopped at the first 2 tablets, maybe my boy would be here today. Imagine the horror a few months later when I found out there was such thing as a reversal pill. It pierced my heart. Unaware of any of these as instructed, I continued taking the further pills to chemically abort my own child. I didn't sleep much that night. I remember being on my own, cradling myself and rocking on the bed, humming to try and mask the emotional and physical pain I felt. At about 5 a.m. on June the 1st, I stumbled into the bathroom and I began to physically try and push. What I saw wasn't a heavy period, and it wasn't a clump of cells. It was a baby. It was my baby, and it was my son. I looked down and my heart shattered. I fell to my knees and screamed in silence. The abortion industry would tell you this was in the privacy of my own home. This wasn't private, this was isolating. I just killed my baby in the comfort of my own home. Can someone please explain to me how this was comfortable? My son died that day, and so did a part of me. Looking back on my home abortion, there were so many things that are wrong and so many lies I was told. I was told that it would be more comfortable at home, when in fact they made my house somewhere I feared going back to, as my bed became the grave to my baby. It isolated me. At a point I didn't even want to go into my room, and sometimes wouldn't come home for weeks. I still lay on that same mattress that is stained with blood. Just a reminder of the trauma and a reminder of the baby that I don't have with me today. There are women like me that are receiving these pills with no face-to-face mental health assessment. How is this safe? No proper way of detecting pressure and coercion from partners, friends or family. No scan to find out the gestation of the baby. The ability for women to hold on to these pills until further into their pregnancy. So how is this quicker? Also, how dangerous? Imagine a woman taking them in her 2nd or 3rd trimester. How can you be certain the person on the other end of the phone is the one pregnant, and it's not a jealous friend, abusive boyfriend, a sex trafficker, or a child abuser? There is no way of determining any of this over the phone. How is any of this safe? The lie that it would be like a heavy period and a bit of cramping, and to follow the leaflet with instructions. Honestly, the list goes on. Can we agree that women deserve better than this? Yeah?
Now, Natalia's story is heartbreaking for a number of reasons. but it illustrates some of the problems that I mentioned with regulation. Sure, women could be sent the pills in the post when they're less than 10 weeks pregnant, but there's no guarantee that they'll take them right away, or even that they'll be the ones taking them, which hits on my next failing. We know that coerced abortion is a problem that many women face. Pills by post-abortion leaves women even more vulnerable to this kind of abuse. And my address at last year's conference was on the topic of coerced abortion. A woman's abuser can be in control of and present for every stage of a pills by post abortion. They could be sitting across from her as she makes the phone call, at the house when the pills are delivered, and there at the point that she takes them. Pills by post could be, and likely is, facilitating abuse like this. And it's not just a concern for pro-life people. Polls have shown that others are worried about this too. 86% of women in the UK and 90% of female GPs were concerned about coercion in telemedicine abortion. In 2020, Georgia Day was having an affair with a man who was expecting a child by another woman, his long-term partner. This man tried to pressure his partner into having an abortion, but she refused continually. He even offered his female friends money to try and obtain abortion pills. Georgia agreed to do it for free and lied to doctors over the phone, saying that in fact she was pregnant. She was sent the pills in the post. The plan would have been then to drug the pregnant woman with the abortion pills without her knowledge or consent. The plan was found out when the pregnant woman discovered the abortion pills hidden under her own bed. Georgia, now 23, pled guilty to conspiring to procure the physical means to procure a miscarriage. The baby's father was acquitted after trial. Thankfully, the intended victim delivered a healthy baby later in 2020. But what would have happened if she had never found those pills? Her partner could have ended the life of her baby using the pills by post policy to do so. Now that we have data from the last 3 years, we have a much stronger understanding of the real risk that pills by post poses to women's health. We know that there are at least 11 cases of women taking pills beyond 10 weeks with serious complications that are being investigated by the Care Quality Commission. We know that there are at least a further 4 illegal cases of women taking pills beyond 24 weeks with serious complications being investigated by the CQC. And the data shows that the rate of complication from medical abortion has more than quadrupled. On average, 39 calls a month are being made to 999 from distressed women having taken abortion pills at home. On average, 20 ambulances a month are being sent to attend to these women. 495 women a month are attending hospital due to incomplete abortions, and 250 women a month are requiring surgery to remove the retained products of conception. Now, based on the data we have, we've been able to extrapolate a few things. It would be fair to estimate that since 2020, 29,000 women have suffered complications from medical abortion, needing surgical intervention. And we would estimate that 25 women a day will need hospital intervention because of a failed medical abortion at home. These are staggering statistics, and they show us that abortion pills are neither safe nor simple. The final failure I'm going to speak about this evening is the psychological impact that home abortion could have on a woman. Medical abortions are a more drawn-out process than surgical. The pills are taken days apart, and the process could take hours or days to complete. Undergoing this at home will be a very different process to doing so in a medical setting. A woman may be alone when she has this abortion, and she may see her child once it's expelled, depending upon how far along she is. If this is the case, she will be responsible for the disposal of her baby's remains. A woman also may feel a greater degree of responsibility in a home abortion because she has taken the most active role in carrying it out. Any trauma she suffers may be tied to her home, the place where she went through this traumatic experience, as Natalia mentioned when she spoke. Some women have shared about this experience. Kirstys has bravely shared about what it was like to have a medical termination at home, And I'd like to play a clip of her sharing her story with March for Life UK.
My name's Kirsty. Back in April I found out I was pregnant. When I first found out I was quite happy about it, shocked but happy. We went through a few weeks of him telling me all the reasons why I shouldn't keep my baby. Various sort of threats, borderline blackmails to not keep the child. During the phone consultation I wasn't offered any sort of pre-appointments such as a scan to see how far gone I was and whether this procedure would be safe. I would have liked the scan because I think it would have helped sort of look at things in a different way. But yeah, it was all very brief and just quick, like they just wanted to get it out the way with. So I took the first part of the abortion medication on a Saturday night. I felt horrible taking it because as soon as I took the first pill I didn't want to, I just wanted it. Then I took the final part of the medication on a Monday. Then when I woke up I actually didn't feel anything, so I didn't think it had worked. And I just remember lifting up my blanket and it being like a scene out of a horror movie. And as I got up I could feel a drip of blood coming down my legs, and then I looked down and I'd made a mess on the carpet, and to this day I've still got a stain on the carpet, which is all I've got left of my baby now. After the procedure was complete you get a test in the kit to make sure that it's worked, to take 2 weeks after the procedure. I took the test 2 weeks afterwards and it came back positive, and obviously a bit of wishful thinking, I was praying that it hadn't worked. I rang the clinic to obviously tell them that it came back positive, thinking that they might actually see me this time, and again it was just a case of no, we'll just send you another test out to take in another week. Took a second test and it came back positive again. And finally they said, and this was the first time that I'd seen somebody face to face, finally they said, you need to come in to obviously make sure that the procedure has worked and you haven't got any pregnancy tissue left in you. I went to the first appointment, but I got sent away because my temperature was slightly over what it should have been, and because obviously with COVID they couldn't risk me going in. Then finally, another week later, I went back to the clinic and they did another test, and that's the first time I actually did have a scan, when they checked to make sure I'd got no pregnancy tissue in me, and it all came back negative. It's obviously dawned on me that it was a dangerous procedure, and I was left really heavily bleeding for months afterwards. If I'd been given the option to speak to somebody such as like a counsellor before coming to like the decision of having an abortion, my decision wouldn't have been what I made back then, and I'd have had my baby with me now. Looking back, I wish one person on the one phone call that I had could have just, I don't know, been a little bit more compassionate and just said, you know, are you sure you want to go through this? My voice was like it is now. When I spoke to them, it was shaky, and I think anybody could have told that. And it wasn't even that I wasn't sure, it was that I didn't want to do it, but as I said, I was in a very manipulative and controlling relationship, so I thought I only had one choice. The at-home abortion is being made to make you think that you're doing it in the comfort of your own home without, you know, having to travel to a clinic or a hospital, but then you've got the memory of the loss of your child in your own home forever. So now, to me, my home's not my home, my happy, safe place. It's the place where it took away my child.
In recent weeks, we've been hearing a lot about abortion and the criminal law. That's because there's a bill coming before Parliament called the Criminal Justice Bill. Pro-abortion MPs, and I say pro-abortion here, not pro-choice, are attempting to decriminalize abortion via amendments to this bill. What does decriminalization even mean? It can be slightly tricky to define, as there have been various different proposals. But the main goal of abortion advocates is to stop abortion being a criminal offense in any circumstance, and to remove it from the criminal law. There are two laws that predate the 1967 Abortion Act, which make abortion a criminal offense. That is the 1861 Offenses Against the Person Act and the 1929 Infant Life Preservation Act. The 1967 Abortion Act essentially provided exceptions to these laws in which circumstances abortions could take place. Proposals for decriminalization usually look at removing or amending sections 58, 59, and less often 60 of the 1861 Act. Decriminalization could remove any meaningful restrictions on abortion, including time limits. There have been parliamentary attempts to decriminalize abortion since 2017, and the Criminal Justice Bill is only the latest. The case of Carla Foster has been a particular spark to further push for decriminalization, right? So the instance of a woman being charged has meant that politicians have jumped on this to push for decriminalization, and abortion providers. BPAS has been heavily campaigning on this. On the 28th of November 2023, Labour MPs Dame Diana Johnson and Stella Creasy tabled amendments NC1 and NC2, respectively, to the government's Criminal Justice Bill. Both of these amendments would decriminalise abortion. A couple of weeks ago, these amendments were debated in committee. This is where a small number of MPs do a line of scrutiny of a bill. It was generally agreed at this stage that a change to abortion law shouldn't be made at the committee stage, so the amendments were withdrawn, which was an expected outcome. We fully anticipated that one or both of these amendments would be retabled, which is exactly what happened. When the bill was reported back to the House, Dame Diana Johnson tabled a very slightly amended version of her original amendment, the text of which is shown here. So what happens next? The earliest the bill can be debated at report stage is the 18th of March this year, so just a few weeks away. There are still unknowns. The Speaker might not select it to be debated, and even if it is debated, it might not be selected to be voted on. But we cannot bank on either of those things. We have to prepare for a debate and a vote on decriminalization fairly imminently. We have a couple of weeks to do all that we can to oppose it. We have a very short briefing on this particular amendment at the stall in the back corner here, the one with the post box on it, so you can take that with you. What I've tried to illustrate this evening is that these tragic cases of illegal late-term abortion, which have MPs calling for decriminalization, were not brought about because abortion is in the criminal law, but rather because of the dangerous pills-by-post policy which has been putting women at risk since the pandemic. It has created an impossible situation to regulate and manage, and should not continue. I hope I've been able to get across the gravity of the situation and the tragic consequences of this policy. Making abortion more convenient or accessible has in fact exposed more women to risk and misled women into ending the lives of their babies. It can be very difficult to turn a policy around once it's in place and once it's been made permanent, and we need your help to do it. And there's a few ways that you can help us. The first is to inform others on the issue. Talk about it. The Carla Foster case was all over the media for weeks, and I suspect there will be similar cases making headlines soon enough. While tragic, this creates opportunities to discuss the issue with those around you and highlight the risks of pills by post. We have an extensive briefing which goes over much of what I've spoken about this evening, also on that table at the back. So please take one away with you to keep yourself informed. Share our postcards. We have postcards, just here, so that you can write to the health secretary calling for an end to pills by post. We have those here for you. That's actually what the post box is for, so you can just fill them out and pop them right in the post box. So please take the time to do that this weekend. It's a simple action that will take minutes, if that. So please do that if you can. In addition to the postcard, please write to your MP on decriminalization and pills by post. It is vitally important that your MP hears from you personally on these issues, and soon. Please, if you're able to, go beyond a standard automatic email. Writing a personal letter is so much more impactful, and we hear that directly from MPs and their staff, right? People sit up and listen when you take the time to write a letter and post it. So if you can take the time to do that, please do. In order to help you do this, Alethea and I are running a workshop during the workshop sessions where we're going to teach you everything you need to know about writing to your MP and giving you the chance to work on it. And we've even paid for your postage. So please do make the time to come along to that. I'd also recommend, if you have pro-life societies, if you have church groups, if you have chaplaincies, do a letter writing evening. You know, do it on a weeknight, get some pizza, and have everybody sit down and write letters to their MPs, because these things can have a huge impact. So please do try and do that. And with that, I'll finish up for the evening. Thank you all again so much for coming. I promise there are more cheery and social events to come tonight. I'm aware that I've started on a bit of a down note. So please do enjoy each other's company, get to know each other, and have fun. Thanks very much.